The NFL regular season is sadly over, and what a fun year it was. And now we head to the postseason, but before I do any postseason talks, I'm going to do some early off-season talks. I specifically want to talk about all of the teams that fell short of the postseason and what their number one priority should be this offseason, whether it has to do with finding the right coach or filling out a huge need at a certain position. I also want to say that the reason y'all see part 1 in the title is I'm going to make a part 2 for teams that did make the playoffs. But before I say what every team needs to do, 99% of y'all that watch my videos still aren't subscribed. Y'all can reduce that number by clicking on the subscribe button and turning on the notification button so y'all can know when I upload more videos like this. Also, I would really appreciate if y'all gave this video a like. It would help me out a lot with the algorithm. Alright, let's get into it. If you're a Saints fan like me, you'll note that this season was so bizarre. Drew Brees retired in the offseason after 20 years, the Saints had negative $100 million in cap space, and had to make some really tough decisions. Michael Thomas delayed his ankle surgery and couldn't play the entire year because of it. Had to relocate to begin the year due to Hurricane Ida. Jameis Winston tore his ACL in the middle of the season and went through 3 different starting quarterbacks after Winston's injuries. They had 58 different starters this year, the most in NFL history, and they almost made it to the playoffs. Fuck you, Rams. But the Saints will be healthier next year, hopefully. And they still have playoff aspirations, but what is the one thing they need to do? The Saints could get another defensive tackle, maybe a linebacker if Quan Alexander leaves, maybe another safety if Marcus Williams isn't back, and maybe another quarterback if Jameis Winston isn't back. But their number one priority is to improve the receiving unit. Sure, Michael Thomas coming back will help out a lot, but outside of him, the receiving unit is just so bad. No receiver had more than 700 yards or 6 touchdowns. Now, you can say Jameis being hurt didn't help those numbers, but then you see these numbers. I mean, the quarterback play wasn't amazing, but the receivers were at plenty fault for the Saints' struggles. I would spend a first-round pick on a wide receiver and maybe go after one in free agency. Maybe bring Traquan Smith back just in case free agency doesn't go well, but the point is they still have to improve the receiving unit. The Chargers are an interesting team. They're a talented team of guys like Uchenna Nwosu, Corey Linsley, Rashawn Slater, Derwin James, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Joey Bosa, and Justin Herbert, but they still managed to miss the playoffs. I wonder why. But anyways, they have a few things they need to do, like add a tackle, another receiver, and get another cornerback. But the Chargers need to make sure they improve their defensive line. Their run defense was pretty terrible this year, and the numbers prove my case. Now, the pass rusher numbers aren't terrible, but Joey Bosa is the reason those numbers are decent. Now, the Chargers can select someone in the first round, maybe bring back Linval Joseph and go after someone in free agency. It doesn't matter how they do it, they need to make sure they address the defensive line in the offseason. The Colts actually got eliminated by the Jaguars. I still can't believe that happened. But that's not their biggest problem right now. They don't have a first round pick thanks to trading it to the Eagles for Carson Wentz. And they do have some needs on both sides of the ball. But as long as they fill those needs through free agency, they will be fine. That's all they need to care about this offseason. Yes, making the right selections in the draft is very important, but the needs they have aren't that dire. Plus, they have plenty of money to spend on filling those needs, like replacing Eric Fisher at left tackle, adding another receiver, a tight end, a safety, and a pass rusher. Whatever the Colts decide is their most important need, they can just fill that need in free agency. They got the money to do it. The Dolphins finished 2021 9-8, winning 8 of their last 9 games and ending the season on a good note. But even the Dolphins screwed that up by firing Brian Flores, who has twice turned the season around and gotten them close to the playoffs. It's not his fault Chris Greer is an idiot and doesn't know how to draft players. You know, I was going to talk about improving the offensive line, but now they need to make sure they find a damn good head coach because they just made a huge mistake firing Brian Flores. It could be anyone, Eric Bieniemy, Kellen Moore, hell, even Jim Harbaugh. I don't care. Find a damn good replacement right now because their future is on the line. Honestly, I could talk about what the Ravens actually need, but they just need to fix whatever the hell is causing all these injuries. I mean, look at the long list of players that miss at least 5 games. Just have to find a way to fix this problem, whether they get a new strength and conditioning coach or fix that practice turf. The Browns had high expectations coming into 2021, but failed to live up to them and missed the playoffs. There are plenty of things they need to do, like trying to bring back Tre'Davion Clowney, add another safety, and a linebacker. But the one thing they need to make sure they do this offseason is add another receiver. In the middle of the 2021 season, the Browns cut Odell Beckham Jr., and as of right now, Jarvis Landry is their wide receiver 1. And these numbers do not scream wide receiver 1. Look, I know Baker Mayfield somehow did bad with a receiver like Odell Beckham, but they still need to get him a receiver or two. Who knows, maybe that shoulder injury was really holding him back. Maybe Odell Beckham wasn't a fit on the team. Or maybe Baker is just a bad quarterback that doesn't deserve any excuse. But who cares about the reason why he sucked in 2021? Get him some weapons and let him prove himself next year. The Minnesota Vikings finally fired Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman after a disappointing last few seasons, but they still have a lot of things they need to do to improve their team. The main thing they need to focus on is fixing their defense. Their defense was not at all great last year. Neither pass or run defense was at all good. The only unit on that team that wasn't terrible for them was linebacker with Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks. Now I know the defense overall wasn't the worst in the league, but it's going to get worse next year if they don't bring back Sheldon Richardson, Anthony Barr, and Patrick Peterson. It's bad enough that they had a bad defense last year, but there's a chance they lose all of these guys and it gets worse. They have to make sure the defense improves this offseason regardless of who their next head coach is. The Washington football team missed the playoffs after winning the NFC East the year before. They still have many pieces on their team to do something, like Antonio Gibson, Montez Sweat, Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen, and Terry McLaurin, but they are still a couple pieces away from being a playoff contender. The one piece they need to focus on getting is a quarterback. Taylor Heinicke isn't a terrible quarterback at all, but look at these numbers. Some of these numbers are good and some are pretty bad. This does not scream franchise quarterback. But the draft class and free agent market is bad at quarterback. But they can't afford to wait around another year. Either try to get the best quarterback available in the draft, or maybe try to get a quarterback in a free agent market, or maybe trade for a quarterback. Either way, Taylor Heinicke is not the answer. The Seattle Seahawks are coming off their worst season in the Russell Wilson era, and things aren't looking good for them. The offense wasn't amazing all year, and the pass defense was pretty bad. Honestly, don't see things getting a lot better for them, so I think the thing they need to do this offseason is start a rebuild. I know Pete Carroll survived Black Monday, but he needs to go. His time is up, and trade Russell Wilson to get some draft picks. I know some Seahawks fans will disagree with this, but let's be honest. Do y'all really see the Seahawks doing anything in the next couple of years? Do you see them competing with the Cardinals, Rams, and 49ers? Even if they compete with them, can they compete with the Packers, Bucks, or Cowboys? That is, of course, assuming Brady and Rodgers don't leave. I mean, yes, they do have guys like DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Bobby Wagner, and Jamal Adams on their team, but the rest of the team is just bad. I just think it's time to officially start a new era. The Denver Broncos fired Vic Fangio, and they have some positions to fill on their team, especially with the fact that they will have 17 unrestricted free agents this offseason, which includes 6 starters. But don't worry, they have enough money to address many of these concerns. But the one position they need to focus spending on is quarterback. Drew Lock has not made any progression since his rookie year, and Teddy Bridgewater didn't help his case to be a franchise quarterback. And they have some good players on the offense like Javonte Williams, Noah Fant, Jerry Jeudy, and Courtland Sutton. Now I know I mentioned this already, but I have to remind y'all that this year's quarterback draft class and free agent market is bad. But then there's the trade market. Last year, there were talks of the Broncos wanting guys like Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson. Those guys are still available. Now, I think the chances of them being traded to the Broncos is unlikely, but they still need to try to do something. The Atlanta Falcons once again missed the playoffs, and I'm sure this offseason will have plenty of talks about should the Falcons keep Matt Ryan or get their next quarterback. I personally think they should keep Ryan and wait another year to get their guy. They have other needs they need to address before a quarterback, like getting a safety, an edge rusher, and another cornerback to pair up with AJ Terrell. But they have to make sure they get a wide receiver. They traded Julio Jones last offseason, Russell Gage and Cordell Patterson are free agents, and there's no telling when Calvin Ridley comes back. But even if he does come back, they should still address the wide receiver position. They do have a stud at tight end in Gators legend Kyle Pitts, but that's it. And they don't have a lot of money to spend on a flashy name in the free agent market, but there are still plenty of receivers available, and they can draft one in the first round. Regardless of how they do it, they need to give Matt Ryan another wide receiver for 2022. The Chicago Bears finally fired Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. They clean house and are looking to improve their team, but there is the problem with not having a first-round pick this year. But they have plenty of money to address the position of needs in the free agent market, like linebacker, defensive tackle, offensive lineman, cornerback, and wide receiver. But the thing they need to focus on is getting a head coach that can help with Fields' development. Justin Fields' rookie season was a rough one, and the numbers proved that, but he still showed that he has good potential. If you look at the stats, you can see that Justin Fields has a good deep ball completion percentage. He has shown that he could run the ball, but he still has a lot of things he needs to learn. And getting a coach that can help him with learning things would be huge, whether it's Eric Bieniemy or Kellen Moore. It doesn't necessarily have to be an offensive-minded coach. It could be a defensive-minded coach like Brian Flores. And maybe he can bring along an offensive coordinator that can help Fields a lot. Just make sure Fields gets the development he needs. The Carolina Panthers look to have a promising start after starting the year 3-0, then they proceeded to lose 13 of their next 15 games. They could have fired Matt Rule, but decided to give him another chance. But Matt Rule being their coach isn't their biggest problem right now. Their biggest problem that they need to figure out is finding a good quarterback. Sam Darnold was not good for Carolina in 2021. And the other quarterback they started for a few games, Cam Newton, didn't work out either. They currently hold the 6th overall pick, and they could potentially get whoever the best quarterback in this class is. I would actually spend that pick on a quarterback. Now I know I have my problems with this draft class, but getting the best quarterback of this class is not a bad idea at all. Plus they're better off doing that than going after someone in the free agent market. The Giants looked like the team that could make a jump after signing many key players in the offseason, but went 4-13. Good news for Giants fans is Dave Gettleman retired and Joe Judge got fired. Bad news is Daniel Jones is still here, and he's clearly not the answer, but I don't think the Giants will move on from him yet. But they have plenty of areas of need that they need to address, like tight end, linebacker, and offensive lineman. Bad news is they don't have a lot of money to spend in free agency, but good news is they have 2 top 10 picks, the 5th and 7th overall picks. They can use those picks to address the positions I just mentioned, but the position they need to address first with their 5th overall pick is an edge rusher. The Giants' pass rushing was pretty bad and their run defense wasn't any better. Things get worse. No one on the team had more than 8 sacks or 8 tackles for losses. It's pretty obvious they have to get an edge rusher this offseason. The Jets had a really bad first year under Robert Saleh, finishing the year 4-13. Zach Wilson looked uninspiring, and they had many injuries just like the Saints and Ravens. But good news for them is they have a lot of money and 2 top 10 picks with the 4th and 10th overall picks. They can spend that money and maybe use both those draft picks to get Zach Wilson another wide receiver, improve the offensive line, and get a pass rusher. But none of those position of needs are as important as the secondary. The New York Jets had one of the worst secondaries in 2021, and there isn't really anyone on the team that looks promising. Plus, they're most likely losing Marcus May this offseason, so they have to make sure they can get themselves a good cornerback and a safety, whether they spend the money on it or they use their top 10 picks on it. The Houston Texans did not have a good 2021 season, finishing the year 4-13, but good news is they have a first-round pick this year at pick number 3, and they will have some money to sign some good players, but filling those needs isn't going to help them out until they figure out the Deshaun Watson situation. Deshaun Watson is currently facing legal troubles, and it is very unclear on whether or not he'll survive this. If he doesn't, then the Texans have to cut him, but if he does, then the Texans need to trade him because I think he still doesn't want to be a Texan, and if those charges are cleared, a lot of quarterback needy teams will want him, and they could get a great value for him and get plenty of picks. Whatever the case is, they have to figure out what to do with Deshaun Watson. The Detroit Lions had themselves quite the first season in the Dan Campbell era. They nearly went 0-17 and ended the year on a nice run, but they still have a lot of things they need to address, like is Jared Goff the guy, and if not, should they go after another quarterback, get another safety, linebacker, and a wide receiver. Luckily for them, they have some money to fill those needs, and 2 first-round picks, which includes the 2nd overall pick. I think the Lions should use that pick to address their biggest need, and their biggest need is an edge rusher. The Lions did a really bad job of getting to the quarterback and stopping the run. No one on the team had 8 sacks or more. In fact, there was only one guy that had more than 30 pressures. That was Charles Harris. Now, I don't know if the Lions will get the best pass rusher in the draft, with the Jaguars having the number 1 pick and having a need at both offensive line and defensive line, but the Lions can still get a really good pass rusher at pick number 2, and they would be stupid to spend it on something else. The Jacksonville Jaguars for the second straight year have the first overall pick. 2021 was a year many Jaguars fans would like to forget, finishing 3-14 and having to deal with Urban Meyer. But now they have the first overall pick and a head coaching vacancy and a lot of money. But unfortunately, Trent Balake is still here, and I would talk about him being fired being their #1 priority, but I just don't see it happening, so it's pointless for me to talk about it. But the Jaguars still have a lot of other issues to address, like trying to bring back DJ Chark and Cam Robinson, and if that doesn't work out, try to replace them and get a tight end, defensive tackle, and linebacker. But even if they succeed in addressing their needs, none of it will matter if Trevor Lawrence doesn't get any good development. That's why I think they really need to try to focus on hiring the right coach. Lawrence had an awful rookie season and didn't live up to the hype of being the best draft prospect since Andrew Luck. But he still has plenty of time to change that narrative, and the Jaguars can help out a lot by hiring a really good head coach like Eric Bieniemy, Kellen Moore, Brian Flores, or Dan Mullen. I kid. But seriously though, go after someone that can not only turn this team around, but help Lawrence out a lot, because they need this to work. There is a reason he had Andrew Luck hype. The talent is there, and if things go right for Lawrence, the Jaguars have their franchise quarterback. But I am hearing Bill O'Brien rumors, and if they do that, please save Lawrence and trade him. Y'all just don't care at this point anymore. That about does it for this video. I hope everyone except the Falcons, Panthers, and Vikings listens to what I say, because I hate seeing teams screw up any potential they have, and I hope they make the right decisions. Now, like I said in the beginning of the video, there will be a part 2 for teams that did make the playoffs, so that will come around after the Super Bowl. If y'all agreed or disagreed with anything I said, let me know in the comments. I am an open-minded guy and would love to hear your arguments. Anyways, that is all I have to say. I will see y'all later, and y'all have a fantastic day. Peace.